record. Okay, so we've actually had, I think, 2 sessions on the subject of you shall surely reprove someone who sins. And we actually, in those 2 sessions, we read one one um, uh, one entire article. I actually posted a second article, but I think we've spent a lot of time discussing this, so I'm not going to go through the entire second article. But I thought we would do a little something because I want to leave time for Alan to do his discussion of his trip to Israel. So this article is also from Torah.com. I've been attaching it to the emails. It's called Rebuke from the Bible to Talmud to Zohar. So it's a long list of commentaries from Bible to Talmud to Zohar. Remember, Zohar is the central text of Jewish mysticism, and a lot of it is we've kind of covered the ideas, but I thought there was an interesting, at least one subsection of this, which is the issue of when you're rebuking someone. So remember I try to just focus on the original text from the Bible. It's in Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Reprove your kin, but incur no guilt on their account. So that's the central text. And then so you reprove someone, you basically, point out what they've done that's wrong, but it raises the question, which we've had a bunch of discussion on, both from ancient sources and sources in our own life, on the question of how far do you go, and what does our tradition say about publicly humiliating someone. So I thought at least this one little section of this article was worth reviewing. So would anyone like to read?
I'll do it.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
In contrast to their strong urge to rebuke, even at high cost, the rabbis speak in the harshest terms against shaming another. Rabbi Eliezer Moda, I've never seen Moda.
Hamodai. Probably. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Anyway.
Okay. Um, lists.
So what is it? It's Hamalbin Penei Chavero
Oh,
Berabim.
which means one who publicly causes his fellow's face to blanch, or according to the Kaufman manuscript,
Just reading. Yeah.
the one who reddens his fellow's face, among behavior which, if engaged in what, Lashon Hora?
Yeah, that one's actually, that Hebrew is pretty easy. Afal pi sheyesh biyado Torah uma'asim tovim ein lo chelek leolam haba. So afal pi means even though. Just do a little Hebrew translating.
Yeah, even though the person.
Say yesh biyado, that is in his hands, Torah uma'asim tovim, Torah and good deeds. Ein lo, it is not to him, elek, a portion, leolam haba. So
No,
even though, why don't you read that?
no portion in the world to come.
Now, portion in the world to come is a reference to basically, do you have a place in the heavens? And this is in the Mishnah. So it's not getting into the detail about punishment and reward and so on, but basically it's someone who shames someone else has a very powerful condemnation. So let's continue.
Yes. The Talmud expands colorfully upon this restriction. The Tanakh taught before Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak, anyone who humiliates another in public, it is as though he spilled his blood. Said to
Rav Nachman bar Yitzhak.
Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said to him, "You have spoken well, for the red leaves his face, and pallor comes."
Yes. So we talked about this, I think maybe last time. The rabbis have this sense that if you humiliate someone and they go pale, the blood has drained from them. So they equate this with spilling blood, which is physically harming someone or even murdering someone.
Abiye said
Abaye,
Abiye said
Abaye, actually.
again.
Abaye. That's just his name.
Abaye.
Mhm.
Abaye said to Rav Dimi, "What are they especially careful about in the West?"
But the West is the Holy Land,
Okay,
Eretz Yisrael, and the East is Babylon. So this is all from the Talmud. So there are rabbinic schools in both Eretz Yisrael and in Bavel. Okay.
that's interesting because we always look to the East as Israel.
Well, not if you're in Babylon. It's
I
not the
guess not. So this is in Babylon.
right,
Okay.
right,
He
because this
said,
is probably in the let's see, yeah, this is in the Babylonian Talmud. It's Bavle Bava Metzia.
"Oh,
Um,
very good.
so it's being written in the Babylonian Talmud.
Okay." He said to him, not shaming others, for Rabbi Hanina said, "Everyone goes down to Gehenna temporarily, except for three who remain. And who are they? One who gives his fellow a nickname, one who shames his friend in public, one who has relations with a married woman." Isn't giving someone a nickname the same thing as humiliating them, even if he uses it?
Okay,
So,
so I just want to maybe we'll read a little more, but I just want to explain what they're talking about here. So in Jewish tradition, there is a place called Gehenna, um, which is a place of punishment, and the tradition is that for most people, you spend a maximum of a year in Gehenna, and then you have. I mean, I don't know much about the Catholic concept of purgatory, but this is what it sounds like to me. And purgatory mean you're purging yourself of sins. So you spend a maximum of a year. I always love to point out that the good news is you get Shabbat off on Friday night. Don't ask me what time zone Gehenna is in. I have no idea. But on Friday night, everybody gets released and they go to snowy places because they want to cool off from the fires of Gehenna. And
geez.
then they, at sunset on Saturday, with Havdalah, they go back to Gehenna. And the other fun thing about Gehenna is the punishment fits the crime. So in
Ooh,
some of these medieval sources, people who have sinned by gossiping are hanged by their tongue.
ooh.
People who are vain about their hair. I can't think of anybody offhand who is vain about their hair, but I'm sure something will come up. Uh, are hanged by their hair. I won't even mention what are sexual crimes, how how that works.
Oh,
But
God.
but the interesting thing is, at least here, there are only three for which you may have a lifelong sentence in Gehenna, and one who gives his fellow a nickname, and this is a humiliating nickname. So I can't think of anyone else. I mean, my imagination is somewhat limited at the moment of anyone who calls their enemies by nicknames, and some of you might be able to come up with something, but I can't.
So,
Uh,
shorty,
one who
if
shames
someone
his,
called somebody who is very short, shorty.
yeah, or dumb, or a lion, or a lazy, or
Yeah. Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
uh, one who shames his friend in public, and then one who commits adultery.
Okay.
Um, Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, is there a difference between shaming someone with words that you speak or words in a letter?
Words in what was the last one?
A letter, if you send somebody a letter instead of
Yeah.
shaming them in public.
Well, I guess the question is it public? So, in these times, I suppose if you post a letter on the door and everyone sees it, that's public.
I
But if
see.
you
Okay.
presumably I think shaming someone is inherently public. So if it's just a private letter, then I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Okay, because I have some trouble with shaming people in public, but I don't have a lot of trouble in shaming somebody with words in a letter. That's just
And
my
you're
body.
saying the letter would be private.
Yes.
We're not talking about a letter to the LA Times.
No, it would be
Okay.
private between me and the other person that I'm shaming.
I don't see that as shaming. I see it as rebuking.
Rebuking,
Yeah,
that's
so
what I mean. Yeah.
so so
Rebuking, yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting. Sonia has an interesting definition about what you're allowed to tease someone about.
Yeah.
And one of her thoughts, which I think is a pretty good one, is you can't tease someone about something that they can't change. So, for example, if they're short or if they're fat or they have, bad skin or whatever, that's not an okay subject for teasing. But
I see.
presumably other things are. If someone, comes in wearing a ridiculous looking shirt, that might be okay for gentle ribbing. But anyway, without going there any further, I think I'm going to read one more.
First,
I really didn't get my answer. Can you shame or rebuke someone in a letter, or it has to be public? So you're
No.
speaking it.
Well, I mean, I from this text, I can't tell.
Can't tell. Okay.
So I don't, and of course, what's really up with Gehenna? I mean, I don't know. I mean, but I would think if you're really shaming someone in private,
Yes.
I mean, I'm sort of with Jerry. I don't know. I think it's how it's expressed. So for example, if you wrote a letter to someone
Yeah.
and you told them, you really are ugly and horrible, and I'm trying to think how you would shame someone in a letter.
They're
If
ugly.
if you, I think what Jerry was saying, if you rebuked them, you made the statement, in front of a bunch of people, and I want you to know that I thought the statement was inappropriate and
Yes.
it hurt a
That's
lot
what
of
I'm talking
people.
about. Yes. That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking
So
about.
I think that's rebuking. I don't think
Yes.
that's
Okay.
shaming.
Okay.
If you really just, wrote someone a letter saying, you're fat, you're ugly, and those are
Yeah.
your best qualities.
That wouldn't be proper. I don't think it's not. It's not.
Now it still could be private, but it still sounds like shaming to me.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna skip the sex part. Let's go to balancing
Sex
the
part is good.
sex part. Okay, you can read it on your own. I want to leave time for Alan. So let's read about balancing the prohibition to shame with the need for rebuke from Maimonides.
Okay.
Yeah, you can continue, Jerry, if you'd like.
Okay. In his discussion of positive commandment to rebuke, Moses Maimonides, Rabban, 1138 to 1204, offers one way to maintain this balance. This is Maimonides Mishnah Torah, Book of Mada.
Mada, yeah.
Okay, laws of Diot.
Mhm.
One who rebukes his fellow is obliged to rebuke him privately, and he should speak to him calmly and gently, telling him that he is only speaking with him for his own good, to bring him to life in a world to come. If he is receptive, good. If not, he should rebuke him a second, even a third time. Thus, it is the duty of a person to continue to rebuke their fellow up to the point that the sinner strikes them and saying, I will not listen.
Okay, I think that's a little extreme.
Yeah.
Let's read just a little more, and then I'm going to turn it over to Alan.
Maimonides' emphasis on privacy and specification of tone and demeanor show a psychological sensitivity that aims to satisfy the two potentially conflicting impulses, to straighten out one's fellow and to refrain from shaming them.
Yes, okay, good.
So
Very
I'm
good.
gonna stop this discussion, give Alan a little more time, and so by way of introducing Alan, you actually spend more time in Israel than anybody I know that I know well, and you know you got back I think after 7 weeks. You can kind of give a little introduction, but things are at a major inflection point, I think, in Israel, although they always seem like they are. Um, and I will just, acknowledge that the world is turning against Israel. Now, that's nothing new, but now I would say longstanding Israel allies are are turning against Israel in terms of the way Israel's been treating Gaza. Even President Trump, who prides himself on being a powerful supporter of Israel, is starting to mention some doubts. And I would say, to me, the most significant thing is this morning, two Israeli organizations. I only remember the name of the first one, B'Tselem, which is one I know pretty well. It's named after the concept that everyone is created in God's image, which in Hebrew would be B'Tselem Elohim, has actually, I'm not sure what the right word is, but concluded that Israel's actions are committing genocide in Gaza. And that one other Israeli organization has also concluded this. A lot of non-Israeli organizations have accused Israel of genocide, but I would say this is turning to a degree which I certainly haven't seen before.
Wow.
So
The conservative movement too came out with a statement today.
yeah, and the reform movement came out with a statement. I don't remember it, but basically, it said both things that are going on are unacceptable. The Hamas attack on Israel and refusal to release the hostages is unacceptable, and the scale of suffering and innocents dying, and children starving are also unacceptable. Um, so, this is actually these things happened this morning. So, Alan, you're going to give us old news, like a couple of weeks ago. But Alan, so why don't you introduce your trip,
All right,
and then you can share the images.
let me get the map up. That way I don't have to fuss around with the settings and then I'll start talking. So I'm going to share. I'm going to then go to photos someplace. That was the part I had earlier. You seeing my scroll of thing? Oh, here it is. Okay. Wait a minute. No. Okay. It's highlighted. I click share. Let's see what happens. Click share.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Good. All
we
right,
got
good.
it.
Large it at all?
Well, it's not intended. Can you see my cursor move around?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
your
so
cursor.
then in that and the next slide, there are not any detail. It's just to tell you where the overview of my 7 weeks. So it was in the middle of the country. I've been to all the way to the south, but for this discussion, I went nowhere near to even as far south as Beersheba or Gaza. And I spent my time either in Tel Aviv, Hoda Sharon, just north of where my cousins live, Jerusalem, a little east of there, further north to Haifa, and to the east in the Golan Heights. Those would be and I'll, the location will come up in the discussion, but I wanted you to have a feel that well, and I'm not sure I'm going to tie to this morning's current events, but to be honest, because I have my own comments on that. But let's stay with the original itinerary, which was to help you appreciate what it's like to be in Israel, if you haven't ever been there, and also to appreciate, and there's a historical kind of Jewish part of it. That's if you've never been there. And then there's the what it's like to be there first since October 7th, which we talked about last year, and that continues, and then there's the Iranian incidents that started in pretty much right in the middle of my 2 months there. So as I'm talking out loud, I'm not connecting it to current events of this morning, but we can get back to that later because I'm full of opinions, but they don't directly relate. I don't think they'll relate to what I'm going to tell you. Anyway, I wanted to give you that overview of the map. I have this other map I made when I was landing from El Al, which actually from the screen on the front of me my seat kind of shows the major cities that I mentioned a few minutes ago, Tel Aviv, and Haifa, and then over to the right, if you've been following I don't go far enough. If you've been following the problems related to Syria, then this other city here, Irbid, is in Syria, just east of the Golan Heights. So kind of like I said, the upper third or 40% of the what we think of as Israel. Yeah, okay, so that's the overview of that. Then I went through my notes as I was organizing the slides, and I don't want to talk through this, but if you just kind of glance at some of the highlights, I was there more than twice as long as I've been other times, and even in spite of being prohibited from public spaces during the heat of the war, which is a government rule that you can't go. Museums are closed and synagogues are closed, and classes are canceled and school is canceled. In spite of all that, I managed to see a whole bunch of stuff. So the pictures are gonna, in most cases, kind of follow the chronology of what I did. Also, stop me at any time with a comment or question, because I don't think this is in a way a kind of informal way of going through this to be required. Think of it as a form. Don't think of it as formal in a way that you should hold your questions, especially if I confuse you. Okay, any initial comments on anything you spot on this list?
I do have one. I do have, oh, Jerry's, go ahead, Jerry has her
Jerry, go
hand.
ahead.
I'm curious if young families are actually trying to homeschool their children. Are they?
Yeah, so here's an example I can give you firsthand. My friend in the Golan Heights and her family were not able to go to school in the last couple of weeks in June when they normally would have. And then there's another scenario where a high school student wasn't allowed to graduate. So in the case of the 6-year-old and 9-year-old, but with Leah, my friend, organized, or maybe with guidance from the school, was to do some online studying in the afternoon, in the morning, for 3 or 4 hours, and then because what Leah reminded me is you can't really keep young children cooped up that way, and then she allowed them to do video games or go outside and do some things like that. So there was I don't know how much that contributed to the last part of the school year to be maybe part of your question, but I do know that if she's representative, some parents were able to do some of the schoolwork over the internet at that time.
Paul?
And Paul? Yeah.
Yes, I do have a question, and it's sort of a geographical question. Whenever I see Israel on the map and I see the other states or other areas around it, Israel is so tiny. I mean, it's so tiny. And I know why it was created. I know when it was created and what the reasons were. But how do you feel when you're in a very tiny, tiny country there, but everything else around you is just gigantic?
Well,
I
it's
don't
kind of like
understand. I don't know how you feel about that. And I'd
it's
like to know
actually as
what you feel about that.
one human 5'8", 7 or 8 tall. It doesn't seem that small, okay? And geographically, it's the size of New Jersey, and Israel actually feels bigger than when I lived in New Jersey.
Really? Okay.
So there's, this half of the state is all this desert to the south.
Yes,
Yeah, so you can't, it's kind of like thinking about Texas when you lived in New Jersey or Delaware, right?
yes.
You can go to Texas, but it doesn't. So my answer to you is it takes a while to get around. To get to Aladdin in the south takes 5 or 6 hours of driving.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
And to get to the Golan Heights with a couple of changes on train takes about 2 hours
Wow.
and an hour from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by train. So it it it's small because we know it's small,
Yes.
but yeah,
Alan, I'll comment.
yeah,
What struck me and many people that I've gone to Israel with is what is very strange is everyone's Jewish
Yes.
by
Yes.
and large.
Right.
Most of the people you meet now, obviously, if you go into Christian Quarter and other places, you're going to see a mix. But I remember going with people and just looking out at a mass of people in downtown Tel Aviv, and probably 95% of those people are Jewish, which is striking. I worked for an Israeli company, and it was a solar energy company, but they had a manufacturing plant outside of Jerusalem. And I remember asking one of the people, of the 400 people or so that work here, how many are not Jewish? And we're talking about blue collar assembly line kinds of jobs. And he thought about it and he said, I think four. So
Oh,
that was more striking to me than a sense of being in a small country.
yes.
right. So,
Right.
so we mostly, it's true that I met Jewish people, but a cab driver on Shabbat is a good example where you're likely to get not an Arab or Palestinian, and if you can get into a discussion a little bit what's on their mind, that can be interesting, but nothing, But the general statement is most of the people we tend to interact with are Jewish, and most of the conversations relate to Jewish holidays, Shabbat.
There are some cities like Jericho and Haifa that have significant non-Jewish populations. And of course, Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is bisexual.
But in Haifa, the diversity is in a very constructive way in my learning over the years that the Muslims and the Arabs and the Jews and the Christians, they kind of like enjoy being with each other rather than
Hmm.
having this extra tension that exists in Jerusalem. And I think in Tel Aviv, it's dominantly Jewish anyway, probably. Anyway, if that sort of gives you a
Yes, it
feel.
does. I do have one more. I'm sorry. I do have one
No,
more
no,
question.
I'm okay with this, and I don't have any time limit, so
Okay,
we'll
Alan,
get.
and this is a pretty private, and just a pretty private talk, I guess we could call it. Are you with somebody else, a significant other when you're in Israel, or are you by yourself?
I don't have a significant other, and I plan my trip by myself, but I plan it around seeing lots of people that I know, not just a small number that are my relatives, my cousins, but I did go through in going through my diary of the 7 weeks. There's two statistics I was about to segue into, which sort of answers your question, is I probably met with, not including the bigger conferences. I probably met with 150 people.
Wow. Okay.
Some were more than once. And if I went to Hofstra Square and there's 10 people that I see every Saturday, they only count once, but some were small groups. Okay. But
Okay.
so I saw and interact with a lot of people. And then the other statistic I had in my mind to give you going into this, for the 7 weeks, I actually was awoken, or it was sometimes during the day, responded to sirens 19 times.
Oh my.
And I'll show you a couple of screens from the Home Command app, and yeah, that's 19 times, and some were during the day, but most of them were at night. And in one case in Jerusalem, it was 3 times, like at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., and 7 a.m. It seemed like the Iranians had a rally of things and that caused the Jerusalem sensors detect because the way in which Israelis or the Home Command app responds, it initially attempts a rocket hitting from Iraq or Iran, and then they calibrate it, and then you get more information about sirens. So the first alert is to be ready, and within a few minutes to 5 to 7 minutes, then you really get told to go to a safe room.
Wow.
And I even get the other alerts still, even though my locations are marked for Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. I'll get this little, very not noisy little notice that when a Yemen rocket is sent. You can do that from yourself if you want to. But then I don't get any more because I'm geographically not, the GPS
Yeah.
doesn't have me in their list anymore.
Well, the
Anyway,
last question I'll ask you, then I'll be quiet. Somebody else can talk. What entices you about going to Israel for such a long time during uh, a long time during your visits?
yeah, so this is maybe, I'll make it brief, but I love this question and I love the fact you asked because there's so many people that I know locally who never ask me that question.
Yeah,
And it's a really important question. Um, I wasn't raised in a Zionist Israel focused background, but as I started to learn more about Israel maybe 15 years ago, I started to connect it to my Jewish identity, the
nice.
importance of the history. And then when I started to go more often and saw liberal or Reform Zionism, what I call Reform Zionism or Reform Judaism, then I realized that this is really important to me. I really appreciate that the people who are Jewish in Israel, who are there in a place that loosely we've all been told this is our homeland. But when you start to go, it just reinforces that
Yes.
would be my answer to your question. And I
Okay.
can't tell you how grateful I am for that question
Well, you're
because
very welcome.
it really actually bugs my kids never ask that question.
You're welcome. Boy, my gosh, I'm so glad I asked it also.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
So,
Alan.
so let's start to and we'll be done by 2 or 3 in the morning. What? Not
Okay, can I make a comment,
sure.
Alan?
Sure.
Because I just wanted to say to Paul, and I've been in Israel a lot too, not for long periods of time, but I've probably gone 15, 20 times.
Oh, wow.
Um, I would say that while it's a small country, what I think people were trying to say is that it's a large Jewish community.
Yeah,
Like, so, and another thing that Al and I talked about this a couple days ago, 60% of the Jews in Israel are Sephardic, Mizrahi. They're
yes,
not Ashkenazi. So when you're in Tel Aviv and you look around on the bus and everybody looks like your relative, but the rest of the Jews don't necessarily look like the neighborhood that you grew up in.
right.
And the other thing I would just add about why I went and was happy to go so many times, it's the most interesting place in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, once you get on the ladder, if I can say it that, of paying attention, because we all, I'm going to say this more broadly than I should, but and I believe most of other Jews don't get on that ladder. They may respect Israel's right to exist, but don't do what Lois just said, and what I do. They don't see it and so therefore noticing these things is just doesn't happen, and I
Yes.
appreciate anybody who takes the time to learn more, which I'm about to move into. So let's see what the next.
Okay.
The disclaimer I started to make before the meeting started is I'm going to use these slides about 4 or 5 times through different groups that I'm part of in the
Oh,
U.S.
wonderful. Okay.
And this is and I only finished scaling down from the 600 to 700 slides to 250 with the goal of scaling that down to 75 to 80.
Wow.
So that's what worked last time. As you flip through, once we get started, we're going to go much faster.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
problem
Wonderful.
that I'm disclosing is I didn't get under 100. So you may either stay longer or leave. That's your choice. But I felt a little, I didn't know how to get it down until I try it and see how quickly, because some you'll see go very quickly. They're just very quick things. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a very common screen on the Home Command app that everybody has, and well, I only know Androids and Apple, but and it's you either set it in one of several languages. I also only know people who do Hebrew and English, but I think the settings allow you to do Arabic or Russian or some other, there's lots of ways you're getting the same information. So you see at the bottom, and this is the time and date that I took the screenshot. Now this one was later in the day on the beginning of the war with Iran because it was the 13th. They use the European format for dates, as you may know.
Oh,
Okay, so 13/6 was June 13. This was and they use the European or military date. So this was in the afternoon. I actually have a 2:59 shot from the day that we got woke up on the day that Israel started bombing Iran. But it's the same kind of thing. You either get this warning, and then later in Hoda Sharon is where my cousins live, you get their warning of the time, and you'll see later in my example when I get to the Golan Heights why they want you protected for 10 minutes because after a rocket is interfered with, the debris or shrapnel, I think it's called sometimes, it'll get to the ground and you'll be safe if you don't go out. And so they want to warn
So
you.
typically, Alan, you're in a protected area for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Well, this is the guideline, but the
No, I
reality,
understand, but what was your experience?
oh, it was usually it was as little as 10 minutes, but it was often 15 to 20. Then there was this other internet thing where I'm sitting in, as you'll see, my cousin's safe room, and he'll say, "We got all clear." And I'm looking at the screen, English screen, and it took another 5 minutes before I saw the English screen. So there's a,
Because I was once, I mentioned I was once in a bomb shelter in northern Israel, but I was there for like 10 or 12 hours. But
wow.
oh,
it was before this kind of internet
yeah. So
activity.
if this was the rock that you were talking about, was it Lebanon or was it the Iraq?
No, it was Lebanon. It was Katyusha rockets, and they didn't have this kind of. There was no Iron Dome. There was
Yeah, yeah.
so it is just a very different experience, I would
Right.
say.
So the reason that I rarely even thought about being afraid, which I did very almost never, but not zero, was that how quickly you realize and hear, as you'll see a couple of pictures, that you're hearing booms of the anti-ballistic technology interfering with the rockets. And then Iron Dome is a special category for more short range. So most of the Iranian ones, it was either a David Sling or there's something else. There were a couple other ones, and then there's drones. So there's all kinds of weapons, but they're all being interfered with very nicely. Thank you to our Israel and American research. Okay, so now the first real event I did after being there a few days, and I don't expect you to read much of this. I just want to highlight a couple things. The reform movement in Israel, called the Israeli Movement for Progressive and Reform Judaism, has a biennial, a 2-day program every 2 years, and they had it this year. Part of why I went is early in the middle of May, and so I'm just sort of showing to you that there's different topics that we have in the reform in the U.S. when we have those kind of conferences, which, by the way, we are going to have it in Philadelphia in 2026, but we haven't had it for several years in the U.S. in North America, and so the pink ones it covered topics like democracy and a few other subjects, but the pink ones were the English track. So this conference is attracts of the 54 Reform synagogues in Israel. About 12 to 1,500 of them go to this conference, which is a nice amount given everything else. And usually they get about 100 international English, people like me who couldn't survive in a Hebrew only class. And so these are English only, but they're not just Americans and Canadians. A lot of the Israelis come to these topics too. So, for example, one of the ones toward the bottom was about conversion and the history of Jews, people converting to Judaism since 1948, and some of the rules that have changed, which have become much more liberal for the benefit of reform people who want to convert but don't want to be converted under Orthodoxy. So that class was very, very nice and very well attended by Israelis, actually, is what I noticed of the 50 some people who went to that. And this was run by the Israeli Religious Action Center, which is our Israeli counterpart for our Washington version of the social action arm. So that's just a taste of the 2 days. And of course, I'm going to show you from the conference that we heard lectures. Anna Kislowski, who's the CEO of the Reform Movement now on the left, and David Bernstein, who's just retiring, so he's getting some honors. This is member of Knesset Rabbi Gilad Kariv. Does anybody, how can I ask this question? Has everybody heard of who he is or never heard?
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah, okay.
Never.
So Okay, so everybody, and I shouldn't say should know him, but he's worth knowing because he ran different jobs in the Reform movement. He's an Israeli-born person who started out being a lawyer, became a rabbi, and that happens in the U.S. At least Rabbi Mike and I know plenty of rabbis who started out in law, but he decided, and he ran the reform movement for 13 years and decided he wanted to go into politics, and he was elected into the Knesset about 5 years ago. He is very controversial within the legislature because he's reform, mainly because he's reform, and he's a rabbi.
He's a reform rabbi. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
he's
key.
the first. There have been reform members of the Knesset before, but he's the first rabbi. And so he kicks a lot of sh shame is a good word, Alan. I mean, Michael, it's he takes a lot of verbal public negative statements about him with I would call it more shame than rebuke that he's subjected to, but he signed up for that, and he's an important voice for the reform movement in Israel. Although he's not a staffer, an organized person anymore. He's a politician.
How does he handle that?
Well, he has the thicker skin than I do. Um, we'll get to the Women of the Wall later, but I'll make this comment. When I went to the Kotel with the Women of the Wall toward the end of June, I met a woman who'd never been to the Women of the Wall service on Rosh Chodesh, and I asked her why she decided to come then. She's an Israeli middle-aged woman, and she said, because I heard these terrible things said about Rabbi Kariv, in the news at the
Yes,
Knesset, and it just upset me so much that I needed to express my support
I see.
by attending the Women of the Wall.
Wonderful, yeah.
And we all do that, right? We react to things. If you're a socially active person, you could probably think a handful, not this subject necessarily, but so it's a great example. I told him this. I saw him at Shabbat the next Friday night, and I said, "You gotta," and he looked at me like, "Nah, no big deal. That happens all the time." But it is a big deal. Okay. So these are more pictures from
Jim has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Uh, yeah, sorry. I apologize for this, but you guys are saying Kotel and then you're saying the Western Wall. Is it the same thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yes. Okay. So the next few are just going to flip through get the sense of the conference, which is at the part of north of Tel Aviv called Ramat Gan, and it was a resort. It's really a resort community, way over my budget for the hotel, so I stayed someplace else. But there's a lovely feel. They always have outdoor services on Friday night, and then they have screens. So there's no prayer books for this, and so you're seeing people toward the front. And then I have a version of this from the last one in a different color. But when the younger people are there in summer camp and come to the service for the conference, they get this shirt, and I love this shirt. So, one of the things they did during the service was a conversion of a small group of men and women under a chuppah as part of the service. And one of the rabbis from Haifa, whose name I don't remember, you see him with his guitar up in the back, up on the bima. And this was a Saturday morning service. It's very hot in Israel at this point. This is the latter part of May. Anyway, everything's air conditioned. And so one of the conferences was Rabbi Josh Weinberg, who's the head of the URJ for North America for Israel, and Orly Aristoslavsky, she's the head of the Israeli Religious Action Center, and they were talking about these different threats related to democracy in a group of.
Josh Weinberg is head of ARTSA. Is that right?
He has 3 or 4 hats. So he's a
Oh,
vice
okay.
president of the URJ. He's the head of ARTSA.
That's the American Reform Zionist
Right.
Association. Mhm.
Right. I mean, probably a couple other titles, but that's right. That's right, Rabbi. Okay. And so I've skipped from the conference, which ended on a Saturday at the end of the day, and
Oof.
it segued into taking a 30-minute ride from Ramat Gan to Tel Aviv, where you'll see pictures a few different times at Hostage Square, which is an open plaza outside of the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, in which way back, I'm going to say way back in January of 2023, this idea of rallying to protest threats to democracy was formed in this area, and it transitioned to support of well, it can support a lot of things, but in the case of the way I see it now, it's demonstrating support for the hostages. And so the way this works at this corner of a fairly large plaza, of which there's maybe 100 to 150, I don't want to say they're all reform people, but they come to the reform program because the people here they have a musical 20 or 30 minutes of different songs. I'll play just a few seconds of one of the music, and then we do Havdalah. They pass out candles, so there's lots of people, participating. Paul, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for calling on me. I wonder, um, uh, why doesn't Israel, the concept of Israel, want any Jew who's there, not just Orthodox, but reform anybody who's Jewish? Why don't they just say, come on in, we want you to come and be with us. They shouldn't be ostracized or
No,
anything
that is
about being Jewish.
that is
What
true.
is it? What is it? I don't get it.
No, Paul, I mean, 80% of Israeli Jews are not observant.
Really?
Yes.
You mean in
Um,
Israel or
in
here?
Israel, in Israel, in
In
Israel.
Israel, okay.
Yeah. Alan, could you back up one? I want to call
Yeah.
people's attention.
All right.
I just want to call your attention that by and large throughout Israel, I'm using my cursor. Every sign is in Hebrew, English, and Arabic.
Oh,
You
wow.
I
see,
just
see
want
how
to,
up at the top, the title of the what it says in, as we most easily say in English.
well,
it-
whoops.
what did I do? I must have done that, right? Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, you're doing this.
I'm doing
Okay.
it. Nicely.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. The Hebrew word for museum is museum.
Yeah.
The first word up on top right of
Yeah.
that sign.
Everybody knows a little Hebrew than they realize.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thanks for pointing that out. Um, and
Doing a great job, Alan.
So now I'm just highlighting Orly, and Nikki Mayor is a lawyer who works for the Religious Action Center. And have coffee with her every time, and I learn all kinds of challenging stories. But my favorite story is when she goes to the Supreme Court and takes on a case on the subject of law of return, because there's a lot of gray areas that it turns out that people want to become Jewish, but the rabbinate is not comfortable. She said they are actually afraid of her.
Really?
She doesn't look like a mean person. She's not a mean person, but she knows what she's doing. And
Sure.
in the Ministry of Immigration, which is where she has to fight for people converting. And I won't take the time. I have a great story from a Syrian couple that during COVID. We'll come to that some other time, or I'll tell you guys offline. Anyway, that's just a few more pictures from the. Okay, Joan.
I got her.
Oh, you're letting her in. I'm sorry. I thought it
Yes.
was, that's fine. Sorry. I was just going to give you a taste of one of the things I like about going to Israeli Shabbat services is there's different melodies, even if the tune. notice they have a booklet of songs that are all in Hebrew, and again, it's over my head, but some of the songs I know, but they you see they pass out these little songbooks during the service. I won't go any further with that. I did record the entire Havdalah blessings. It takes about 3 minutes, and I used it for Havdalah at my group at Central Synagogue on Saturday, and it was just nice. It was an Israeli taste, the same thing you could get any place. Uh, so you always have to have a chance to look at the Mediterranean in Tel Aviv,
at
and
that
just
picture.
show this only because I'm segueing into, and at sunset is just lovely. But one of the things that is all over Israel are pictures of the hostages. So whether
Oh,
they're at the beach or in my cousin's neighborhood in the high rise in Hada Sharon, and of course at the hostage square, there's pictures of individuals and speeches. I'm going to come in and out of the hostage square 2 or 3 times, I think, but I just wanted to illustrate how prominent Israelis attend to the issue with remembering the hostages. So another thing worth mentioning. So Beit Daniel is I'm going to say the biggest Reform synagogue in Israel. It's in Tel Aviv, and they're very diverse. So they engage in an art program with Muslims and Christians for 10 years, and then they celebrate their art at the Jaffa port. Jaffa is the southern part of Tel Aviv. And so I went to this program, and I got to watch some of the work that they did. These are some of the kids and their parents who participated in the artwork at it's called the Port of Jaffa, but it's an indoor building that really was never used as a fisherman's port. It's just like a community center kind of building. But this is a bunch of people working on doing the art, some with the kids, some with adults, drawing on outline thing that some artists, probably obviously did themselves. So I enjoy the fact that
okay.
the reform movement does these things they do two things, right? The diversity is both Muslims, Christians, and Jews, but also men and women, something which is the contribution I'm going to say that Reform Judaism contributes to in Israel. So this is just some of the art that was on the walls during that. Now, the next thing I wanted to feature.
Judy has a question.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I missed that. Go ahead,
Yeah, I'm just curious if at Hostage Square or any other section, if a hostage was returned and there have been, a dozen or so, do they take their picture down or do they leave them up to signify that they were stolen from the land at one point?
That's actually a good question. The ones that I've seen in our recent rallies in Northern California is they take these posters that maybe are 2 foot by 3 foot with pictures of and they keep them on, and the ones they know that have died, they mark them as having been killed.
Hmm.
But the ones that have come back, they should be off. I don't know the answer. I'm just reminded that there's two things that happen on these posters. One is then, and I can just flip back to it. You might see. Do we see one of those yet? No, I'll see later. You'll see pictures of the hostages with the numbers crossed out, like 21 crossed out with 22 crossed out with 23. Those are the ages over the 2 years that they've been kept in captivity. So they update the ages and they do mark whether they are no longer alive, at least the ones I know, and so forth. Anyway, back here. Good question. Good question.
I'm
There's
sorry,
a theater in.
oh, Gary,
Yeah, go ahead.
Gary has another question. Go ahead.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
go.
I do have one more question. When you're in a shelter, a bomb shelter, and you hear the bombs go off, do you yourself ever get scared that you're going to lose a body part? Something's going to crash, and some of the shrapnel will come in and just blast you up and just blast you apart.
If you're in the shelter, it wouldn't be, you would already feel comfortable. I
Feel
haven't
comfortable.
been out on
Okay.
the street, but when you hear the no noise, the noise is up in the air, right? That's when the
I see.
air dome hits with it, and then the shrapnel could hit the building.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been in two or three family safe rooms, and I'm thinking out loud whether if something hit the building, would it?
Yeah.
I think that one part would be okay. And clearly, 20 steps down into the ground, the one community shelter I was in, for sure that would be fine. But
Wow.
but uh, but um, but that's a good question. And I have an example of what happens what the shrapnel can look like.
I
Um,
think we need to keep moving, Alan.
we
Yeah.
into
Okay.
all right. So yes, okay. Oh, it's 8 o'clock already. Well, I'm good for time, and if anyway, this is a theater in Jaffa, which is specifically was I was there 10 years ago, and this is the second time I was able to go there. It's actually a theater where the actors and actresses are blind and deaf. And so
Oh, wow.
they have a lot of musical background,
No
and
way.
and you have up on the screen in three languages, Hebrew, English, and Arabic. You kind of have the story. The actors and actresses are amazing because they're not totally enabled to talk, although you can't. Well, they're impaired significantly in their speeches because they're deaf. But nevertheless, it's an interesting experience, and I unfortunately in the middle of that there was a siren, and so this is
Oh
just
my.
an example at 9:21 in the middle of the service we had to get on the ground
Oh no.
and pause the service. This is a just to show off a aerial mall, a big in Tel Aviv, a big what could have been an American mall. I was a friend of mine was picking up some tailoring. So we walked through there, and then outside in Dizengoff Square, which is part of a big place in Israel, in
Look
Tel
at
Aviv.
that.
This is one of the things that grew in since October 7th is that around this big fountain, people have put memoranda of their people who I would say most of these people are people who have passed away, who were killed in
Oh
the
my gosh.
1100. I don't, my friend didn't describe whether it identifies the hostages separately in that way. Now moving from there to Shabbat, the next day or two, the northern edge of Tel Aviv, there's the Yarkon River, and Beit Daniel, the temple I was mentioning earlier is there, and so I'm a member of a lot of these temples, but anyway, I like
Wow.
to go there. This is how they handle the hour before services, where they gather all the kids around and sing, and this is what their sanctuary looks like. Um,
Wow.
this is I'm not sure how to add to this. I went through my friend in Tel Aviv. I went to a family on Saturday afternoon. I think what's representative is that Saturday lunches become Saturday half days for Shabbat, and it's a buffet kind of thing. And so all kinds of friends and family come to these really lovely people, and it's all ages. You can see that, and
Yeah.
just make a mention of how a lot of people spend their Shabbats. Um, skipping to when I went to Haifa for the Technion. So my friends in Technion in San Francisco may be aware of a centennial conference
Oh
that
my.
is was being honoring because it's been 100 years since 1925 that the Technion, which is sometimes described as the MIT of Israel, and so by spending 3 days here, I won't be able to do justice, except that I was exposed to sessions on all kinds of research on technology, on healthcare,
Wow. Oh
food
my God.
security, and and um, and it was like a break, I would say. There was almost nothing about politics and the war. Okay, so well, except I'm now jumping around. There was obviously signs of yellow symbolism related to this was outside. This wasn't actually in the campus. of about the hostages. But the building that was founded is still there. It's a museum of various types, and that's where the opening lecture was taken. This is just, the symbolism of the conference. But the lead speaker was the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, and
Oh,
he gave the speech in English because a good amount of the people there, but probably and didn't do anything political. And Anyway, I got a picture of him. I met him.
you know what I just felt, and I just have to, I'm just, I'm just struck by this is when there's a picture of the glass and you look out on all these buildings. Is that that's part of Israel, but the technology and I don't know what Israel looks like because I've never been there, but it looks like Los Angeles.
Oh, what a city looks like.
Yeah,
Well,
some
yeah,
of it looks like LA. I've never been to Israel, so I don't know. I thought it was a bunch of just bricks and stones and stuff, but it's
well,
not.
there's
There's a
8
lot of
million
buildings
people
there.
and a million in Tel Aviv and 800,000 in Jerusalem. But there's ancient buildings and there's modern buildings. Something you
I
don't
see.
have here, especially in Jerusalem, you would not have pictures from 300 or 400 years old, but they're all
Right.
mixed in with pictures of buildings that you would recognize.
Yeah, look at this picture. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
this is a model of the Technion campus. There's 200 buildings. I just wanted
Oh
to
my
point
gosh,
this
look at
out.
that.
And so although I this was surprised at how much I learned about the contributions of the Technion, but the agenda was featuring honoring big donors. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get bored listening to people being thanked.
What does Technion mean?
What does it mean?
What is it? Is it like a
It's
technology
it's
campus?
yeah, tech, it's like an MIT
It is.
technical.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
So this is a model, and in the tour they pointed out a few of the major buildings, but I don't remember to
Gee.
take the time. Um, so the next two slides are part of what I was trying to orient you to why this was like a break from everyday politics and current events. So this is some of the work that all of the Israeli universities, not just Technion, organized to deal with the government's response to the right-wing government and October 7th, and then the Iranian thing. So these are just the way they gave a graphical description, and the best thing I can do with this is not let you spend too much time on it because we could spend a lot of time. But the other thing that was interesting that 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 I was proud of is that the Technion can and you know this on some level that the contributions of research in
Oh,
Israel is fairly impressive over the years, and the numbers of companies that are successful, like Waze is a good example, or things that get contributed like drip irrigation or cherry tomatoes. These are kinds of things that get mentioned in these sessions that would make us proud and remind us
yeah.
of things that Israel does that are good, where we get reminded in the news that are not always or appreciated, I guess I would say. Okay. And I forgot why I put this in here. My
Oh
favorite
my, look at
presentation
that.
was research on developing ways to improve one's muscles with aging so they could open jars and do things that they wouldn't be able to. So there was a woman did a whole bunch of slides on that. I don't have a slide on it, but it's another example of the Technion research.
Oh my
The
gosh.
closing dinner was an
Oh,
or dinner, and one of the ways they set it up, there was probably 300 or 400 people attending, but at each of the tables, there were two or three seats that were set up to invite soldiers. So these
oh,
three people were at my table, and they were, we were encouraged to learn about their experience of being soldiers in the IDF, and in some cases, it was highlighted about injuries and stuff. But anyway, these were just nice people, and I'm not,
oh my
just
gosh.
nice that they were honoring them. They're really trying to do is is honor soldiers, and so we got to sit with this group.
Fascinating, just fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. Then I went north from about 30-minute train north of Haifa is a city just south of Lebanon called Nahariya. I'm a member of a synagogue there that I got connected last year after October 7th. And so this is the second time I went up and I met with my fellow congregants. Some of these people are, many of them are English, I mean, American by
Look
background.
at that.
They,
Look
they
at
just said we went for
that.
coffee out on the beach.
The views they get.
So
Oh my
so it's a
gosh.
nice example of an Israeli Reform synagogue. It's when I go to services at 8 o'clock in California time on Fridays, it's 6 o'clock their time. So I knew a couple of these people before, but I get to know them more through Zoom. And when the rabbi, I mean, I don't have a picture of her, she presents the sermon in three languages,
Wow.
through English, and sends it out by WhatsApp a few hours before. It's in English, Hebrew, it's in English, Hebrew, and in Spanish. So
Oh
this
my.
community has quite a lot of South American immigrants, I guess you would say.
Yeah, you know, it looks like Malibu to me. I've never seen this
Well,
kind
you're
of thing.
looking at the Mediterranean. If you look
I've
hard
never
to the
seen this
right and
kind of
look at
thing
the
from
Lebanon,
Israel. I've
and
never ever seen it.
this is not an uncommon picture on a train. A
Oh
soldier
my.
carrying a rifle that just then one day I went to Jerusalem for one day and then for 3 weeks later. But this is just a picture of how they dug 4 stories. Well, I don't know if they're stories. Four escalators that are like this that get you to the platform of the train to get to the airport or to Tel Aviv. So it's
Oh
just
my God.
a
It's
massive thing.
it's
Yeah.
magic. It's
This is Yad Vashem. Have
nuts.
any of you been to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So it's just I spent a day. I guess I like.
Shows the Holocaust Memorial
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Museum.
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi. And so I don't have well, I don't think you can take pictures inside anyway, but it's easy to see pictures of the exhibits of the history of the events that led up to the Holocaust and during the Holocaust is really what it is. And 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 it's a slightly like slight isn't the right word. If you go to the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, you're going to get the same information, but I can't describe why it feels different. But it's the same theme. It's about the Holocaust.
I have to get going. I have one more question for you, or just a comment. Seeing all these things makes me feel I have a sense of pride in Israel now that I see these things and what's happening and where it's located. I just have a sense of awe about the whole thing. Thank you for sharing, Alan. This is wonderful.
You're welcome. So this
Alan, do you have a home in Israel?
no, no. Well, my cousin might accuse me of that if you've been there enough for 2 months. We went
Yeah,
out
I
to
got to
dinner
go,
with
but
some other
thank you
friends
so much.
and no, you're welcome. Thank you for the comment. So we're back to the next Shabbat. Now, I would go every Friday night to services and every Saturday night to the rallies, except for the times that I couldn't because there were the restrictions that for public gathering during the war time. So and also, I have a picture, a little, this is in Tel Aviv. They do the same thing on a smaller scale in Jerusalem every Saturday night, and they do it in other cities too. I'm not tracking that. Last year, I went to a couple other cities. So this is an ongoing thing where the way democracy manifests itself in Israel is by people going out on the street, whether it has to do with judicial reform or hostages. This is what Israelis do. These are some of this. I'm still in Tel Aviv. I won't stop on the people. These are repeats at this point. Notice the numbers. I mentioned that earlier. So this poor person was 22 in October 7th, 2023. And now he's still, and this is the mother. Sometimes you get speeches. There's one particular hostage who was released, Lee Siegel, and his brother was a member of our temple at Beit Daniel, and so he still gives speeches because he still appreciates that his brother was released, but that the government is not doing enough, the way he describes it, to get the rest of the hostages out. And okay, now I intersected with a program in Tel Aviv with a group that the Jewish Federation of North America had a mission to Israel for the gay and lesbian group, and it happened to be set up in a way that I was able to join the dinner for the last of their tour, and the next day was supposed to be the Pride parade. So this was June 12th. And the person on the yellow is Rabbi Sidney Mintz, my rabbi in San Francisco, and I don't know the other people. But they had a lot of speeches expressing support of the gay and lesbian community. It was actually very nice. But the thing that I would mention, oh yeah, then one of my favorite shirts. I asked her for permission before I took her picture also.
Did you get one of the shirts for you to wear?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't think that wasn't the intention of that particular shirt.
Oh, I know.
That's funny. No, I didn't see it for sale at the this was an outdoor dinner at Tel Aviv, Sheraton. Um, but then what happened at 10 o'clock, they announced that if you're going to the airport, go to the bus. And if you're staying overnight for the party, for the Pride parade, hang around, stay in the hotel. That was at 10 o'clock. So I went to the train and I went home, or went to my cousin's. At 3 o'clock in the morning, as you'll see from the time at 2:59, the sirens went off, and anybody who was there, the 70 some people from North America for that conference, they got stuck because the airport was closed for quite a while. And I have stories. There's lots of stories of people staying and not staying, and how you could get to Cyprus or Jordan or not. There's lots of ways, but the airport was closed for quite a while because immediately when Israel started bombing the Iranian nuclear facilities at this particular time at 3 a.m. on June 13, they took the attitude, or Israel did, that there will be retaliations immediately. It took a few hours, but for the first rockets. Okay. This is my cousin's bomb shelter at that point, and their granddaughter and dog. So each of the windows are reinforced. I'll be right back. I need to turn on.
Probably needed to get some water.
Say the bomb shelter I was in northern Israel, so this is now in I don't know, probably 1999, was just a big concrete room underground with bunk beds and one non-working toilet.
Well, the one I was in, I don't even remember if there's a toilet, but certainly weren't any bunk beds. The one, well, I'll show you the one to Jerusalem a little ways. Anyway, so when you start to get ready and go in there, you close these reinforced doors and windows. So then the next day, whenever that was the 15th, I went to the Golan Heights on the train on a Sunday, and that's my suitcase actually. On a Sunday is the first day of work in Israel, and usually soldiers who have leave for Shabbat are on there. This is what crazy people like me do the day after a war starts. They have a whole train to themselves. Um, so this is the train station in Carmiel, which is a little ways from the Golan Heights where my friend picked us up. And this is just a couple of scenes. So what you should get out of this is how rural the Golan Heights is. Golan Heights is in the eastern part of Israel along the Syrian border. My friend's home was built about 15 years ago in a Greek kind of architecture, which is, you see a little bit of that here. And I want to feature what they had in their front yard the night before I got there. Oh, this is the inside of the house and my friend Leah. And this is what the kids found in the backyard the day after a rocket was
Shrapnel.
intercepted. This is the shrapnel that they have as a souvenir. So it's a obviously not that thick, or the kids wouldn't be able to lift them, but it's real steel and it's burned by the rocket or the interference of the Iron Dome. I mean, I got to go in their bomb shelter. Of course, their bomb shelter is a multi-purpose basement. Most families do during this is they put their young children to bed in sleeping bags on the floor, which you see here, and they have two teenagers who, like the adults, they come into the shelter when you need to, but the kids at least don't have to be dragged out of their beds. And this is an example of the Golan Heights with wild horses in the same area where they live. Mm, yeah. We went for a walk to face toward the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret. The kids got to swim in a pond, and I had a picture. Oh, I missed a sign. So where they live, the headway of the Jordan River is, right in that part of the Golan Heights. So we went over and looked at the Jordan River when it's very narrow and muddy. It's not the way it's usually in the news, where it's much wider, as the border between Jordan and
It was shocking to see how narrow it was for me.
yeah. Yeah. So this is my cousin with the Labrador on the right, and we were out doing a walk at 7 in the morning, and there was sirens, and so we ended up in a shop. And this was the named bomb shelter. It's a parking garage under a shopping center, but it didn't seem necessarily as safe as other places I've been, but that's what was available. Baca is a part in the southern part of Jerusalem, which is where I stayed for 10 days. I signed up for 20 days, but I ended up staying 10. And this is what the building looks like, built in the 1930s. The owner, when she introduced me, she said her husband's family got this house in the 1930s when they moved from Eastern Europe, and when the Arabs had abandoned homes like this because of the conflicts. I'm not sure whether you might know, Rabbi Mike. During the 1930s, there were uprising against the Arabs. Was it the British or the Jews?
Oh no.
Okay.
This is Jerusalem?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the story that she gave us, and there's two buildings where the brother still lives, and she lives across the street. But this was made into four units for bed and breakfast. And was only one other resident there because, like everybody else, you couldn't get in and out of Israel. So my neighbor um, and her three children and two dogs, which I got to know her, they were there because their house or their apartment house in Ramat Gan was one of the places a few days earlier had been hit by an Iranian rocket and was destroyed. And they were in their shelter safely, she says safely. But the building, I got this from the internet. This is the picture that was published about the building that got hit with the rocket. Um, and when she says she's okay, she doesn't talk about trauma, right? She might be an Israeli who is pretty tough, but can you imagine being in the basement and having your building being blown apart by an Iranian rocket? So I think there's some PTSD hidden in this story, but she certainly seemed like a pleasant enough person. This is what the street, okay, so this is the street in front of where I stayed, and this is the steps down to your experience, Mike, is about 20 steps into the ground where it's a community bomb shelter, and I didn't see any evidence of, let alone beds.
The shelter I was in the middle of a field somewhere. It
Yeah,
wasn't connected with any building. It
this was
actually was, I think it was on a kibbutz.
oh, okay, and this was in a mostly residential part of Jerusalem,
Hmm.
but it was clearly built for this purpose. It wasn't like a community. There's some places I went that were just, it's like better than nothing kind of places. This felt the safest place. The
Hmm.
problem was the Wi-Fi and knowing from the home command that you could leave, so people would stand in the hallway hoping to get enough of a single, and so we dealt with that part. But nice people, and it was a good experience to be there. Um, I never saw the traces of the Iron Dome, so I got this from the internet, but I did see when you look out, if you're near the sky before it clears, you see the little dots of the explosions. Obviously, whoever took this picture, probably a time lapse kind of thing, but I never saw the trails. But I did see out on this, and it wasn't this dark either. The one time we came out of the bomb shelter and you could see the remaining, not this many, but you get the idea of that. So that's just sort of what protects with the technology of, I'm going to say primarily the combination of Israel in the United States military research. There may be more to that story, but I, I am grateful to both countries for that. And this is the one you want to watch, right? It's over. You can get out. Um, I did a couple of volunteer things. This was a group in Jerusalem that I got directed by Hartman, and we filled out cards to send to reservists, expressing their gratitude for serving in the reserve. So this is just a picture from there. This is a couple that I met and a guide I met. There were several of us who ended up being in Israel before Hartman canceled, and so we hung around with each other. There is a part that I wanted to feature, though. Outside of the old city is this, and maybe Rabbi Mike, you know more about this. This is a well-known historic site just south of the old city before, when people started to live outside of the old, what was the city, the walled city. So this is a,
This is the first residential area outside the walls of Jerusalem.
yeah, and so there's
And
this other guy was not a historian, but he was able to give us a nice tour of some of the buildings and the windmill that you were talking about that you stayed near too. I have pictures from the windmill.
Mhm.
It's that same neighborhood, Mike.
I think it was Rothschild who
Yes.
financed that construction.
Okay. Just want to do a time check. I'm doing fine, but I'm not done. That's the point. I'm gonna you guys drop off as you have, and Mike, if you have to shut me off, let me know. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
let's try and move toward wrapping up.
All right, then I'm not sure where I am in the sequence of events. I have friends at the Jewish Agency in the World Zionist Organization, and this is their main building, which is part of what they're called the national institutions, the Jewish National Fund, Kerem Kehilat, KKL, and a few other groups. These are the administrative, not religious organizations that are not the government, but are important parts of worldwide Jewry. And this is uh, uh, your own Shavit, who's a good friend of mine, and he's the deputy general. And so I had a meeting with him, and he gave me this little picture of the Declaration of Independence, which I have on my wall here now at home. Okay, moving along. They have pictures of the other leaders. These are the liberal reform leaders, and some of these named people, Mike, you probably know them also. Besides Ben Gurion is probably there, but Dick Hirsch, and then the other name I'll get to in a second. I went to HUC more than once. This is the new Plaza's entryway, Rabbi, that I'm sure haven't been there, right? Because it only opened in
The
2020.
the plaza looks familiar, but not that entryway.
Oh, okay. Then okay. And lets me not spend time on people like that. I went to a cemetery not far from Jerusalem, which is at a kibbutz where what's described as where the reform leaders, if they wanted to be buried, are buried in the cemetery. And the two people's graves I wanted to visit was Rabbi Stan Davids, who just died in March and was buried here in Israel. And I went to his cemetery. I went to his funeral in L.A., but I wanted to visit his grave. And Dick Hirsch, who I didn't know personally, was a major influence um, on Reform Zionism and the Reform movement. You were going to say, Mike? No?
Sorry.
Oh, I thought somebody was going to say something. Okay, moving along. Doop, doop, doop. So I went to the hotel twice. I went on my own because I always like to have a private time there. And then the next, and of course, like people who go there, there's a tradition to write notes, prayers, notes, whatever you think that might be noticed by you know who. And so that's an example of what I always do when I go to the hotel privately. This is a picture shooting at the men's section. And then the next day was Rosh Chodesh, and I took the van with the women of the wall. That's Anat Hoffman in the sunglasses, if you know who she is, and a few of the other women. And then this is where we sort of where we accumulated. Obviously, the women's section is not women there, but and that's Yochi Rappaport, who's the head of the Women of the Wall. And this is the entrance to the women. So men accumulate in the plaza. Of course, we can't go in with the women, and we hang around, and they get harassed, as you may have read in the news. If you read the news today, there was an incident where the troublemakers have caused a problem bringing a Torah into the women's section, and but this is what the men's section looks like. So to the right over the wall, you're looking over the women's section, but this is a routine that happens every month. The yeshiva students or these young Orthodox kids come and they harass the men. Now, there really were only 3 or 4 of us. I've been there when there's 20 of them, and sometimes when school is in session, HUC students come. You did that too, right, Mike? You went to what?
Well, there was no Women on the Wall program when I was there.
Oh, right. Okay. Anyway, so this is my companions who we stood around. I always get nervous. This went very smoothly, but I did get spit at and harassed in ways that I don't want to remember from a few years ago. Um, and then we went back. I went to the next noteworthy thing is a new National Library of Israel. This is an amazing 6-story building which houses all kinds of like the original Babylonian Talmud. Okay, and then of course another display of all the hostages, all 251 of them are displayed here. But this robotic generation stacking system, which may only be in Israel and in London, if I understood the tour, where you want a book and it's a 6-story high stack. We're looking through a window on the toward the top, and this machine finds you the book and brings it out to the front of the library.
Fantastic.
I know. And it's a reading library only. You can't take stuff out, but people I knew a few people who they go there to research things, and it's open to the public. You just have to, and so they have a big reading room, and they have a synagogue, and they have and also a prayer room for Muslims also. So it's not just Jewish. It reflects the Israeli practices. We were talking about the language before. Um, I went to this is the other 2 synagogues that I went to on Friday night in Reform Synagogue Harel in Jerusalem. I'm going to go a little faster in Kol HaShema and also in the other part of Jerusalem, and it's just a shot of the sanctuaries. What they did at Kol HaShema on Saturday morning, which maybe happens here, is when they get to the prayers related to the remembering the hostages, they pass out a piece of paper with the names of all the
They
hostages.
do it at Ariel,
They
Temple
do
of
it.
Ariel. Yeah.
Okay, so this is there were about 40 names at the time I was there, and so they have an envelope, and they obviously they reduce the number when they learn somebody's not there anymore. Okay. Now, this is the Hachette Square rally in Jerusalem. And what I learned in these speeches is that there's multi-themes. It's not just hostages in both in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So this one, Mike, you can probably read it, but it has something to do with the war, stopping the war right now, right? I looked it up at one point, but it doesn't matter. We'll keep going.
I mean, I can read the first word as like a break or a pause.
Okay. Yeah, anyway.
When you break coffee break, it's hafsaka. So
Okay.
hafsaku et milchama. So stop or pause the war at milchama.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was, but
yeah,
so there were like three things. There was a that Orly pointed out to me that were walking with us in groups, that it was not all about the hostages. So that's all. Um, this I'll just let you hear the sound. So at the center part, once you've gone the rally to the main part of
הירוק היום ירוק מאוד, ואפור היום.
anyway, so you hear speeches and music at all these rallies. They have a new Museum of Tolerance, which is probably not too beautiful building, but not too noteworthy to spend time talking about it. And the tour, the Pardes Institute was one of the places that things got canceled or got converted to online. And I met with one of the education directors, and then I went to the Shuk, the
Yeah.
market in Jerusalem, which if you've been to Jerusalem, you've been there yourselves, right? One of my favorite displays is how many different types of challah you could actually have on display.
lava.
Hava,
Alava,
halva, sorry. Yeah.
Mhm.
not
Okay.
challah.
My cousins are in that building that's just to the right on the top floor. But the day that I was walking to the train, they just put this up. So for a reason that I don't know, they decided to put up a new sign in their community with pictures of the
Yeah, and the Hebrew says asur lishkfot. It's forbidden to forget.
okay. One of my cousin's friends who I've come to know, son was murdered at the Nova Festival in on October 7th. And outside of the fitness center, which you can't see here, a bunch of the other families pooled some money together and created a little park in honor of Matan's being killed. So not quite finished now, but it's a little garden area outside of the fitness center that they're honoring him. This is the new light rail that I went to, and this was only worth noting that there's a museum in Jaffa, the Paris Center for Innovation, and so there's a tour. They talk about a lot of things done in Israel, probably overlap things from the Technion in some ways, but Shimon Peres was a big fan of Startup Nation and Israeli technology besides his political roles. And so they've created a museum to show off lots of stuff here. We're getting to the end now, just so you know. I'd done this before. Leked Israel is a volunteer. Well, it's an organization that collects excess produce from farms and distributes it to needy people. They've been doing this for 20 years, but their needs for volunteers obviously blossomed from October 7th, 2023. And so this time, also the attendance was a lot less than last year because of the airline, so that Birthright and other groups would come and volunteer and spend a half a day packing produce. And in this case, all the people except for the staff person who teamed up with me, who was a English speaking person, all the rest of the people were Israelis. So Israelis are, including my cousins, they do this kind of volunteer stuff. This time we did carrots for 3 hours, putting them in little containers. Just as an aside, there's these improvised or temporary bomb shelters that show up around town in Hoda Sharon. So it's a steel metal building that if you're not near something that you can get into safety and the siren goes off, you can go into this. And now we're at the airport and on my way out. So I am, we managed, that was, what was it, 45 minutes, 50, how long was this? It was
A little over.
too long, too long.
We're here.
I thought it was great, Alan.
Yeah, thank you,
Kol
Alan.
hakavod.
Yes, Yasher Koach.
How many people are still on? I don't know how many were people to start. Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much. I may find ways to take a few slides out because it's a question of it being too long. It's not the content, it's just the time.
It reminds
Alan,
me
do
of what I
you-
use as an often opening joke. Two boys are bragging about their rabbi. And one boy says, "My rabbi can speak for an hour on any subject." And the other boy says, "That's nothing. My rabbi can speak for 2 hours on no subject at all." So this
Alan,
was
do you
definitely,
Have a wonderful vacation or just a couple of day break with Sonia and give her a
yeah,
highlight.
we do not have a Wednesday class this week. But we'll be back on next Monday and next Wednesday. So thank you again, and
And
I've
thank you
recorded the
all.
whole thing, and it'll be sent
All right.
out to the gang.
And if
Thank you.
anybody
I'll be
want to
back.
talk, call, you know how to get in touch with me, or Mike can get you. If you want to talk about any of this, I'm always happy to do that too.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Lila Tove,
thank
everybody.
you, Alan. Lila Tove.
Lila.
Beautiful.
Thank you.